What is going on YouTube? Welcome back to another video. Today we're talking about investment banking careers in London versus investment banking careers in New York. And the reason for that is because these are two of the most popular destinations for graduates and professionals to go and work in at investment banks. In this video we're going to cover areas including work-life balance, salaries, cost of living, holiday days off, the intensity of the work, opportunities within the firms, bonuses, exit opportunities, and a lot more. Before we get into it, yesterday on LinkedIn and Instagram, I launched my 99-page introduction to investment banking career guide. That's 99 pages of comprehensive detail explaining everything you need to know to break into the industry. If you want to get your hands on the guide, hit the first link in the video description below, check it out, and now let's get straight to the video. All right, so some context. When I joined Goldman's back in the day, first when you join, they fly you out to New York because that's where they're headquartered. Most of the global investment banks or most of the American investment banks are headquartered in the US. So they fly you out there for a month and a half or 2 months, and then you get to see what the working culture is like there. You meet all your colleagues, it's a global team, so on and so forth. So spending that time there was interesting, and you see the difference between New York and London. In terms of work-life balance, London wins easily. And the reason for that is, like, obviously within each investment bank there's different divisions, and the division where you're going to do the longest hours is the investment banking division. And so it's a given that you're going to be working 12 to 15, 16 hours a day in London or New York if you're in the investment banking division. However, work-life balance in London tends to be a bit better than in New York, and there's one main reason for that, and that is because New York is where the American investment banks are headquartered, and so naturally the working conditions are going to be a bit tougher. People are going to work longer hours. There's just, you know, when senior management run the firm in New York, there's going to be a lot more pressure on employees compared to, you know, the European headquarter in London. The working culture, the work-life balance is slightly different. That isn't to say, you know, work-life balance in London in banking is, you know, is a walk in the park. It's intense, but naturally, I would say work-life balance in New York and the culture in New York in general, people work a lot longer, work a lot, I want to say harder. There's just more of a grinding, staying in the office till late type of culture in New York versus in London. Or another way to look at it, people are more likely to leave the office earlier and not be, you know, looked at or frowned upon in London versus in New York. That's the sense that I got. That's what a lot of people say online. If you look at forums, if you look at other YouTube videos, the work-life balance in London tends to be better than that in New York. All right, so London wins on work-life balance. Next, we've got salaries. This is pretty straightforward. It's very simple, easy. New York wins here all day long. If you look at base salaries for investment banking, for example, in London, base salaries will be about 50, 60, 65k pound sterling. That's about 70, 80,000 dollars in the UK in London. If you go to New York, investment banking base salaries start at like 100k or 110k in dollars. So it's at least 20, 30,000 dollars more than London based salaries for an analyst in the investment banking division. And I think it's a similar story across the other front office divisions as well. And the reason for that is there's multiple factors that influence this, some of which we'll talk about, including like cost of living and all of that. But it goes back to the fact that American investment banks, they're headquartered in the US. The US is a lot stronger in recent times than the pound sterling. 10 years ago, you would get $1.66 for every pound sterling. Now you'll get probably $1.25 for every pound sterling. So the dollar has strengthened. And so if you're in New York, you're going to be paid in dollars as opposed to pounds. The dollar is stronger, so that's beneficial for you. And naturally, there's been a lot more salary conversations. And so salaries have, over time, been increasing in New York versus their London counterparts. All right, so on the salary conversation, New York wins. In terms of cost of living, London and New York are two of the most up there in terms of two of the most expensive cities in the world. They're definitely in the top 5 or top 10. Both are very expensive. Cost of living is going to be high, but I think New York is a bit more expensive, especially when it comes to rent in like Manhattan or, you know, downtown New York, where near Wall Street and all of that, rent is going to be extortionate. Rent in London is expensive as well, but I think on this occasion, New York's going to be a city with a higher cost of living, and so London wins on this metric. Before we carry on, just a quick word to let you know that I released a 99-page Introduction to Investment Banking Career Guide. You can check it out using the first link in the video description below. It covers everything you need to know about investment banking if you're a student, graduate, or junior professional looking to break into the industry. The idea behind it is I wanted to create something where anyone can pick it up, read it, and become more knowledgeable about the industry than anyone who isn't already in the industry. If that sounds interesting to you, check it out using the first link in the video description below. Now let's get back to the video. All right, holiday days off. This one is another win for London, and the reason for that is in London you get like 23 to 27 days of holiday per year to take, and you're kind of encouraged to take them off. So that's, you know, that's about what, 4 or 5 weeks of holiday. In New York, as far as I know, it's like 10 or 11 days a year. And what's worse is if you take all of them, people frown upon it. Like, the culture there is like most people don't take holidays, and 10 holiday days a year is a bit mad. So holiday days off, London wins all day long. Just keep that in mind. If you're going to go work in New York, you don't get many holiday days off, and that can impact, you know, your mindset. It could cause burnout, all of those things. But it goes back to the intensity, poor work-life balance, or the rigid work structure and culture in New York versus in London. Next, the intensity. This one goes to New York. I guess is good. Is high intensity good or bad? If you want something super intense where you don't get much of a work-life balance, where you don't get many holiday days off, then go to New York. There you'll find non-stop working, long days, people just live to work kind of thing. In London it's a bit more balanced. I might be coming across harsh on New York, but these are the observations that I've made. Let me know in the comments if you disagree. If you're in London or if you're in New York, if you've got experience of both, what you've experienced, let me know in the comments below. All right, opportunities within the firms to progress. This one, I think New York wins, and the reason for that is if you're working for a Goldman's or a JP Morgan or a Morgan Stanley, who are American investment banks, and you're working in New York, naturally you're closer to the mothership, right? And so you're just closer to the action. All their marketing, all their efforts tend to be in an American voice, for example, as opposed to a British voice, because they're an American investment bank. And so if you're working in New York, you're going to be closer to the best opportunities within the organization, and you're going to be closer to the most important decision makers in the firm compared to that of if you were working in London. That's not to say you don't get exposure to senior professionals and senior decision makers who run the organization, but if you're closer, if you're at the global headquarters in New York, you'll be exposed to more opportunities than you would be if you were in London. All right, bonuses. This goes back to the salary conversation. I think bonuses are stronger in New York versus in London, and it goes back to, one, the strength of the currency, two, the focus on salaries in recent years and increasing pay in New York or in America versus London. The working culture in New York is more ruthless. You typically work longer, you work on the bigger deals. The market in the US is a lot bigger than the European market. So if you're in banking, for example, you work on more exciting deals, or not necessarily exciting, you work on bigger deals. Bigger deals means bigger fees, bigger tickets that you can earn, and so that impacts your bonus. So here, New York also wins. Last but not least, New York also wins on exit opportunities. Don't get me wrong, if you're in London or New York, exit opportunities are going to be sick if you're working for an investment bank, regardless of which division you're in, because you're going to learn a lot. But once again, it goes back to, in New York, if you want to move from banking to a hedge fund or a private equity firm or venture capital, or do your own thing, whatever it might be, the market in New York is a lot bigger, a lot of the key players. So typically people move from front office roles into hedge funds or PE firms or venture funds. And most of the big players in these spaces are in New York or are in America, as opposed to in London. It's a lot more niche. And so if you're already in the States, the exit opportunities are going to be easier or better for you to move into in the US versus if you're working in London. All right, so on the 8 metrics that we've discussed, New York wins on 5 and London wins on 3. London wins on work-life balance, cost of living, and holiday days off. New York wins on salaries. New York wins on, I don't know if it's a win to win on intensity, but there you go. It wins on opportunities for progression, wins on bonuses, and wins on exit opportunities. If you found this video useful, give it a thumbs up. Make sure you check out the 99-page guide that I've made on investment banking using the link in the video description. And with that, I'll see you in the next video. Peace.